Hello, pokalbį apie kokybę, or let's talk about quality listeners and viewers. Today we're going to be talking about accessibility testing, and we're going to be using English language. And the main reason for using English language is not because we want to make this episode more accessible to wider audience, but because we have a guest from a foreign country. So today we have Elīna, who came here all this way from Daugpils, Latvia. And Elīna, can you introduce yourself to our audience?
Hello, my name is Elīna Šiškeviča, and I'm accessibility testing department lead in a test develop company, so in Latvian company. So I have overall experience in testing and IT like more than 11 years. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, thank you for coming all this way to Vilnius. So we have another guest, and this person, we were working together for more than 6 years. So Jurij is my colleague, and I can say generally that he have a passion for accessibility testing, and he had that for a long time since I know him. And he is also a good storyteller, so hopefully we're gonna hear some good stories today. And Jurij, could you present yourself?
Yep. Hello, my name is Jurij Nesvat. I'm a principal test engineer here at WCAG Cognizant Soft Vision. I'm in testing for 16 years, but the topic of accessibility came into my life back to 2016.
Thank you, Jurij. And we can then start this topic with a simple basics. What is accessibility testing, and how did you end up in this area? So let's start with Elīna.
I would say this accessibility testing. We can't speak about accessibility testing without knowledge about what is accessibility in general. So I would say this is practice of making some information or resources visible and meaningful and usable for all of us, including people with disabilities, without any discrimination, I would say. So for me, accessibility is avoiding of some kind of discrimination, and accessibility testing. And if we are talking about digital accessibility, so this is non-functional testing, during which we are checking if this product is it can be read, it can be accessible by all the people, and including again people with disabilities. And how I went to this testing also. So a lot of years I was working as a functional tester, and also I was managing some products. But one day I got some request from, I don't remember, maybe some client or something, I don't remember from whom, but about accessibility testing. Do you know what is accessibility testing? And I heard something, but okay. And after this request, I started studying and learning and reading about this, and I found out that by doing our products more accessible, we are helping people to access this information, and we are really avoiding of this kind of discrimination. So also after school years, I think I will be some doctor. But life feels life, and I'm in IT. It was my second passion, so I really enjoying working in IT. But now I enjoying this testing and this kind of special accessibility testing, because we are working only in accessibility field, and for me this is kind of something related with medicine, with healthcare, and somehow I feel that we are helping people. Yes, so. That's all from my side of this topic.
Interesting.
Yeah. Helping people, I can agree with that.
Yes.
Accessibility does help people. Jurij, what about you? Maybe you have something to add. What is accessibility testing, and maybe how you ended up in this field?
My story is very similar to Elīna. I was working in Debrecen. We had many projects from different clients, and then just one day, one client came which said that basically we have accessibility requirements. And at that moment I was in testing for 10 years. I knew that there is such thing, but I never had time basically to Google to start to do something. So, okay, accessibility, what is that? And at their site they had one person who did quite a lot, and we just had quick meeting when they show me basics with screen reader, basics with keyboard navigation. And I said like, okay, cool, let's try to do this. It was interesting in the beginning, but probably it became better when I decided to share my knowledge with colleagues. I tried to do some presentation to tell something. And after doing a couple of presentations, I went to one conference in Austin, in Texas. And looking at presentation there, I saw my own thoughts, my own ideas. And in some cases, I saw absolutely the same way in structured presentations. So it was like, wow. I felt like we are thinking in some similar way, that it is something that I could do easily. It's something that it's kind of natural for me. So I stayed there for 6 years already. And it started with screen reader, but actually later I started to, let's say, fight a bit with that perception of accessibility. Because it's as Elīna said, it's not only about screen reader, it's not only about people with disabilities. And if you probably that's the first definition. If you Google it, it will be something that accessibility is a type of testing when we are ensuring that people with disabilities might do something. It's still there, it's still in Google. But I personally think that this connection of accessibility with disabilities made more harm than good. If we take a look at the percentage of people with disabilities and without disabilities, usually we are saying something about number 15%. So basically, looking historically, we can say that for many years, 85% of all people were building the world, ignoring other 15%. They did it according to their needs, according to their ideas. So it's absolutely natural and very unfair that those 15% felt betrayed, felt lost, felt discriminated, and so on. Of course, I agree that it is very important to speak about accessibility from this perspective, that there are people who need assistance, who need additional technologies, who need things done in another way. But at the same time, by promoting accessibility, I saw that it is quite hard for those other 85% of people to be completely emphatic and completely understand the problems of those 15 people. And by constantly telling that, hey, there are people that need help, it doesn't change picture so much, because you might be very emphatic, but still you cannot fully understand what does it mean to be limited in some part. So, and in this case, I started to speak about accessibility in another way, how everyone can benefit, and not only tying to this certain disability, but speaking in broader way. For example, if we take one of the requirements, subtitles for video, we can say that yeah, it helps for people who are deaf, but at the same time, I think that we should mention that it might help for people working in loud environment who cannot hear the sound, or who are in the very silent environment like library when you are not allowed to turn on sound. So promoting accessibility in this way, how we all can benefit from it, I think it will be more beneficial than staying only with disabilities definition.
Yeah, like connecting broader audience and more value into like adding accessibility into products. Yeah, that's very, very good thought. Yeah.
Like the word accessibility, like making the information more accessible to everyone. I
was trying to come out with some definition of accessibility that would like more than the one that is standard one, but it's exactly something about accessibility under different conditions, and those conditions, they might be external or internal. Like bright light, loud environment, silent environment, or so something
that's
internal.
External.
That's external, or something internal, like a person's ability to learn, to hear, to see, and so on.
So yeah, it usually works when you are like providing some examples about a mother holding baby, for example, and you are trying to use a tab, for example, to make some changes on your page. So yes, I also have some lecturers like lectures and about accessibility and some courses. For people, when you are trying to explain what is accessibility testing and why it's so critical and crucial, it's really working when you are putting some real life examples. For example, when you are trying to read at the sunlight, or baby holding baby and trying to navigate on some web page, or you are like, for example, I think anyone like broke arm, not me, but but someone, and this person tried really to explore a page using only tab. Sometimes it's not possible, and when I'm sharing these examples, so people think, yes, and is it about accessibility? Yes, this is about accessibility.
I had one personal story. It's not too dramatic, but I started to think in another way when we had the first kid, and I was walking with a stroller, and I decided that I wanted to have a coffee from my favorite coffee shop, and it was on a small hill, and I'm like walking happy, thinking about the coffee, and that was the moment when I realized that there are only stairs or just the ground with wet grass, and there is absolutely no way how you can push the stroller up there. And it's interesting moment because you are in completely new situation that you could not think of before, because you were not limited in such way, never. And here you're starting to think in another way. So wow, how can I get there? Are other people live like this all the time?
What are other accessibility examples? I mean, you are like professionals working in this field, and you walk around in the city or drive a car, and maybe you notice more things that we who don't work with that don't pay attention.
I have noticed first thing when I was a little kid and my parents left at my grandmother's house here in Vilnius, and we were walking, and I remember very good that the street lights were beeping already in 90s. So I was thinking, why they are beeping if I can see the green light?
Like you're...
Yes, if you don't see, you can hear when you can cross the street. This is the feature that appeared in Vilnius quite early, and I remembered it being small. Other thing that you might not notice while you're walking there, if you look now here from the top floor, you will see a lot of yellow tiles, which are shaped in a different way than the other ones.
I know that there is a special neighborhood in Vilnius where they have a school for people with eyesight disabilities. So there they have lots of tiles, and I used to drive with the bike there a lot, so I would see lots of people who are like trying to find their way. So I try to, not drive fast or something like that.
It became a standard at some point. We can see it in every district in Vilnius now.
Do you think that having children, more than one especially, is kind of like a disability? Because you face, well, not a disability, but you face lots of accessibility problems. Like you need a clear payment for the strollers. You need bathrooms or restrooms, because it's a child. Like if it's older than when he needs to do it, right? Like, and you're walking, and the children, they tend to do it like more often. I don't know, like a couple of hours or so, and you're walking like in a park, so that's all right? There is a forest. If you have a boy, that's easier a little bit. But what if you are, I don't know, in like a city center, and there is no coffee shops or so? What?
Well, there is a definition of disability. I don't remember how it sounds, but the things that you described don't fall under it. But let's say, yes, there are different limitations to your usual behavior that you had before, comparing with what you have when you have kids, of course.
Yeah. So not like a disability, but you face more accessibility problems, because it's, you always have to have something in one arm, right? Because you cannot leave it. It can like go away, and can't go conveniently.
It puts certain limitations to your life in the beginning when they are small and need a lot of assistance from you. Yes, of course.
Maybe continuing the accessibility topic, what about our educational system? Does it have everything so that it would be accessible to everyone? That was your question, right? Accessibility of education?
Ah,
Ah.
that's
Yeah. It
no,
is.
I didn't mean that, but
Okay,
let's
maybe
try.
are we like education is like universal thing that should be available to everyone? Is it accessible if you have, I don't know, something disabilities, any sort of? So
I know that there is a school for blind people in Vilnius, but it's the only one in
Yes. So as far as I know, if you are in such situation, you have do some research, you have do some additional things to find a good place.
probably move
It's
to
n-
Vilnius,
it's-
right?
yeah.
Like there's probably like not many of them. It's
Yeah.
not everyone you can find it.
It's not a national standard to provide accessible education to everyone everywhere, and it also depends probably how old the school is.
And it's bad, I would say, but I would say that after a pandemic, education became more accessible because we have like we can work from home, we can learn from home, for example, yeah, and at least people with some like physical impairments, for example, they can participate in lections. They can at least listen this information. They don't need to visit schools, for example. I would say that this pandemic triggered something in this way somehow. We were pushed. In real and in good world, it will be great to have presentation with captions. For example, if we have video, educational video, like some video during our election, we have captions. We will have some online, offline transcript of this to make it possible to read after this lection and the same material, for example. Yeah, so I would say this is something what we are lacking in all the Baltics. So hard for some people with and for some children with some disabilities. It's hard to find some really good educational institution. So all the parents should think about and stress about it, check this information, maybe really move to Vilnius or Riga, for example, to some specific countries or cities with this some specific schools. So what accessibility, this is something what we are adapting for people with disabilities, like by default, by this term. But universal design, when we are thinking how to do something and how to make something to be accessible to anyone, like for me, for you, for people, for blind people, for example, yeah. And if we are creating video, okay, it should be okay for us and for all of us to add captions, because we can really see this video in bus, for example, yeah. And I missed my AirPods, yeah. And okay, I will use these captions to see all this information, yeah, or anything else. This is about universal design also.
So what is this universal design? It's basically just like a term to describe that if you're building an application, it should be accessible to everyone.
Not the application, but yes, it's a concept which are basically saying that we are doing one thing once, but we are doing it in such a way so that it will be accessible for everyone. And it's a very broad concept. It is about city planning, about buildings, about design of things, about education. Elīna mentioned a few points from how concept of universal design can be applied to education, so that the information is provided in multiple forms. And from the student side, it should be also allowed to show your knowledge in a different forms. Someone might be better at speaking, someone might be better at writing, someone is learning faster than other people, and so on. So our school system is pretty much standardized, but not in a broad way. So if you are doing something not like the majority, then you feel a bit outside of the process.
You don't fit.
Yeah.
One of my classmates had a temporal disability with eyesight. So he had some kind of very strange condition that he was seeing black circles in the middle of his vision. So everything outside was visible, but only so and it got that at 11th grade when he reached exams, and so that disability kind of disappeared, but he still had some kind of like condition, so he got the exams in a bigger, like usually it's A4 standard, but he got with A3, the bigger one. He got extra time, and that was back in, I don't know, 2007, 6. So they were kind of like providing those abilities for you to, if you had that, we were thinking outside the box. I think it wasn't like normal to print that on A3. So I think, yeah, there is some like notion that, especially for kids, to give that education, universal design, that it should be accessible to everyone.
I think you were very lucky with the teachers there. And this is usually what pushes accessibility forward. It's not some government stuff. It's people who are passionate about it, who want to do something, and teachers in your school made extra effort. I don't think
Thank you for teachers from WCAG Gymnasia.
I really don't think that there was an accessibility program like defined and described for everyone. It was more like someone's effort.
From my perspective, I think that accessibility topic should be covered during basic education and learning process in maybe universities at least, and in different studying programs like teachers, architects, engineers, web designers, for example. It should be by default because yes, sometimes I see some fails. It's really super critical fails from design perspective, also in some buildings, for example, where I have some road and light in the middle of this road. Okay, this is not about accessibility also, yeah? And who checked this documentation? Who checked this project? This person or this team is not aware of accessibility, but is not aware that we have mom with children, for example. It's not possible to write here, I think that this kind of, at least on high level, but we need to remember, and we need to know that people at least know what is accessibility.
Even entertainment is starting to have accessibility as well. For example, there are games and also game awards for accessibility, best implementation of accessibility as well. So it is becoming more prevalent in that industry as well. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, we see good progress there. In general, I think we should repeat the same idea that accessibility is not always something extreme about screen reader. We can start with simple examples that we all know about. For example, the selection of the difficulty level is also can be counted as accessibility feature. For example, I want to play this game. I want to have all the game experience, but I don't have time. I have 5 kids. I don't have time to play the same level again and again for a few days in a row, but I want to see like the final movie. I just can make it easier, and then I will get the same product. And there are many features that are doing basically the same, but in another way. Some of them were getting accessibility awards. For example, one game developer made additional training grounds so that people could pass certain level, which is harder than other part of the game. In some cases, it is possible to have to pass certain place like peer gaming with some colleague playing together. For example, if you are playing Quest and there is a riddle based on colors, there should be another way to solve that riddle if you don't see the colors, or skip it at all. One of the games, I don't remember the name, they just added a possibility to skip one difficult riddle just if it's unsolvable, so that player would not be blocked. Another interesting award that was there, it's about reducing input. For example, if I cannot hold or I cannot manipulate with the standard joystick of the PlayStation. The game should not require to have like 10 fingers moving in a very fast way, the combination of 10 different keyboard keys and so on. So maybe we can simplify the input that is required from the player. So this is also was one of the awards that one of the game received. But it's getting really interesting with the screen reader. Because we are making everything visual. The whole civilization is visual, and the game are, first of all, are like visual art, and we are moving in this direction since 80s probably. The graphic is becoming better and better and better, and the screen reader is also one of the tools that is being used in the game, but of course it needs a lot of effort from game development. Basically, speaking about different games, the strategic games are not too accessible, but very interesting that the most accessible games are becoming shooters, 3D action games. Basically, there are two domains of information that should be given to the user. One is all the text that is on the screen, which is easier part because every screen reader has a connection to the operating system OCR model, which is object. OCR stands for Object Content Recognition. So basically, it's a standard part of every operating system, and every screen reader can connect to it. And with the help of additional add-ons, the user can easily read everything on the screen. So here we can remember, I don't know if you remember, in the 80s there were text games, which has no graphics, but basically the pure text, and everything was about your imagination. So this kind of game now becomes audio game, completely accessible, and actually it's very good because where you are not given with any graphics, your imagination works better. So I think that this is very interesting type of games which was forgotten and lost, but I hope it will come back one day. But it's even more interesting how to provide the information about the position in the game. First of all, a mouse should not be used because when you are playing with mouse and you cannot easily control the movement in all directions, usually a player gets stuck with or looking up or looking down. So basically it's all about standard controller like PlayStation, because there is a knob which is constantly coming back to the middle position. As with the screen reader, sound is being used as the main tool to give information for person about the placement, about the landscape. For example, there is a sound when you are stuck, when there is a wall right behind you, so that you wouldn't run all the time. There is a sound when there is a hole nearby, or ammo crate with ammo, or health kit. They all are producing certain sound. If you have a good 3D surrounding sound, you can understand where it's located, where different things are located around you. Some of the developers are also implementing stuff like echolocation. You just press one button, there is like sound, and well, it's done in a certain way, so you can understand where are the walls, where are the other players or your enemies. Auto-aiming helps a bit, and if the aim is on your enemy, there is also a certain sound. And peer gaming is also very popular. When there is another player who like supervises you, it doesn't mean that another player leads you all the time, but he might help you in certain moments.
So like he is just there to help me achieve some objective or pass the level?
Sometimes, but not. That's not the main goal. It's most of the game developers are trying to do the game that could be finished alone. But if there is a certain hard place, it might be advisable to have a peer gaming. There is a lot of YouTube channels when blind people are playing such games alone or with peers, and sometimes even talking what is happening, so you can see all of it. There is one good channel, and there is a guy, I think he lives in Toronto, or somewhere in Canada. He has his own YouTube channel, Steve Saylor. Basically, the channel is full of gaming videos, and he's blind. He sees some things, like some lights, but not more. But this is very interesting education channel.
I opened one of the games which had probably the most accessibility options, and it had more than 60. So there's some of them for apply vision accessibility presets, apply hearing accessibility presets, and apply motor accessibility presets. So it's basically like helping multiple ways if you're have some limitations.
Which game is that?
So Last of Us Part 2.
Second part, yeah. Last of Us second part is the most accessible shooter. It didn't receive very good grades like for regular users, but it's one of the best accessible 3D shooters that was released.
What are the models of accessibility?
So basically, the first thing that usually comes to mind when you think about let's say, when you are unprepared, you don't know anything about disabilities, and you see a person who is in the wheelchair. You first of all, usually most of the people have negative things that okay, it's a limitation, it's very bad, he has he cannot move his legs, and he's very limited in his action. This is called medical model of disability, which is concentrate exactly on the medical stuff, that there is such condition which can be medically described, which puts certain restrictions in the life. Later, there came a model which was called social model of disability, which says basically that the problem should not be on the person, the problem should be on the environment around. So it's fine if someone cannot move the legs, or it's fine if someone cannot hear, cannot see. Our society is quite advanced. Let's try to build environment. Probably it's environment which is limiting the person, not the condition of the person. So this is next level of the evolution, which is what's called social model of disability, and the goal is to change the environment and not concentrate on the person itself.
Another model of disabilities, as a charity model, when we are looking to people with disabilities as unfortunate, when we think that they need some assistance, some financial maybe as assistance, or some I would say assistance from our side. But I would say that also another model of disability that I would say I like it because this is kind of, I don't like it, but this kind of a little bit positive. This model refers to sense of deriving one's personal identity from membership, within a group, for example, yeah. And when we are speaking about this model, we can remember about deaf community, deaf with capital D, and for example, those people are going to special school, they are thinking, and this is totally correct, that they are totally okay. They have no any disability. This is their culture, and sign language is their language. This is also for example, I'm Latvian. I'm speaking in Latvian. You're Lithuanian. You're speaking in Lithuanian. But they are deaf. They are proud to be deaf, and they have their own language. It's totally fine. They are proud of this. So yeah, but I think, and I like this model, to be honest, because we are another people, but we are also we are on the same level. So, but there is also community without capital deaf. This is not community, but some people are thinking that they are deaf without this culture, and they have possibility because, for example, most probably people who born deaf, they must probably think that they are community. But, for example, some people who lost their hearing, yeah, so they can't think like that, because they must probably remember it, right? They don't accept it, yeah. So and most probably this person have to learn this sign language, for example, and most probably they feeling some problems during this way. So the main weakness of this model is that if person is not only deaf, has some other disabilities, they are excluded. They can feel that they are excluded from this community because they have more than this disability. This model looks at disability in at least some positive way. We are proud of being in this community. Okay. Yes.
What is the most widely accepted model nowadays, or they are all exist at the same time and people just fall into one or the other category?
They are all existing in certain way, but the whole idea of universal design is basically a social model of disability, when we blame environment for not being flexible enough, and that we all together should build the environment. Is it design, is it application, web page, doesn't matter.
Okay, and That's why it's general, because it applies to everything where it can be applied.
Testing accessibility and all the things coming with that. So we have maybe first topic, let's start with application development and when the accessibility should start. Is it in the last step when we start testing it?
First step, design level.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's a hot topic, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I can start with in 2 sentences at least. So my opinion that accessibility testing should be started also on static level already. Sometimes, because sometimes when you, or at least me, when I'm checking some requirements, I already see some accessibility difficulties and issues and something else. So, for example, if we are checking designs, doing some testing on design level when we have mockups, and we see, here most probably you have what kind of error message should be here, for example, can you provide error messages? Can you provide design color codes, for example? So when we have possibility to see design for new feature, I'm asking for design accessibility review. And it helps. For example, I can provide some comments and questions about, and which can trigger some general problems and working on discussions on this topic. Because sometimes, I see new form, but I see, and is it new design? Yes, so you have incorrect color level, for example, color contrast level. So, and it can be fixed as far as they know. And designers, they are not approved this design, for example, at least on some level. When we are working with companies and with products which are 10 years old, for example, it's super hard to change design and color codes. And because this is something what people know. And I remember that I don't remember which company, but company changed this color contrast for some features, and some people, and all the people noticed this change. It was a super small change from our perspective, but for users it was super visible. And they were shocked if this application is working incorrectly. Maybe it's some incorrect version, for example, or it's testing version. They were confused because they remember this application with this color contrast and this color for 10 years.
Okay, so introducing this accessibility in the application which is used already, it's quite dangerous and difficult.
Yes. Yes, I would say sometimes more dangerous than fixing some functional defects. Sometimes, accessibility testing should be performed if it's possible, also as functional testing in earlier stage of development.
Remembering first experience with accessibility, I started to work in a very, very chaotic environment when accessibility was given to the testers for the first time in the project at all. So project was built for a certain time, and then some person comes and said, hey, by the way, in our country there will be an accessibility deadline. Let's put our testers to check what we have building for a few years. This is how we started. Long time ago, and I'm glad to see that it changes over the time. So if we have, in our project, usually we have the whole chain. So we have a client, and we are starting conversation with clients before coding, before everything, like an early workshop. Then we have design team, then we have front-end development, and then we have testing team. So we can see that there is a shift left of accessibility interest from just giving to the testers to the first stage. And it's very important, I think, to start in our domain. Usually we start a lot of new projects with a completely new clients. And it's very important to start this conversation with the client even before the budget is signed, probably. And we are basically asking simple things. And it's very interesting to see that even in the countries when deadlines are already in place, Clients sometimes do not know what to do, what is accessibility, or under which law they are currently. Sometimes we are asking, could you please find a lawyer in your country that will explain to you, where are you? Are you working with government bodies? How accessible should you be? Are you producing some documents that will go to other systems? So this is where we start the conversation. We define the level, we define how public it is, if it's external system, is it an internal system, and how accessible should we be? And then we are going to other stages. And it all basically depends on the team and how team is divided. For example, I see that real good conversations are starting between testing and front-end development. These are two parties that are starting to go to the other's domain. Testers are starting to have their own front-end sandboxes when they can play with some code and not just register a bug that this is bad, but also propose some kind of solution how it can be fixed. And the same with front-enders. They're starting to be good with screen readers. They can perform good testing with screen reader on their own. So this part, I like how we're moving there. I'm not sure, I cannot be happy in the same way with the design part, because it's probably the specifics of our company. Very often designers are working in another track. We call it proudly dual Scrum track, but basically we don't have designers. The designs are very often just being attached to the story, and when you are trying to criticize, to say that here will be a problem, you might get an answer that this was approved with the client 2 months ago, and no one will go backwards and redo them. In some teams, when designer is a part of the team and works in the same track, in the same pace, it's fine, then there might be a conversation. I really like how testers are merging their abilities with the front-end developers. I really would like so that the same merge would appear between designers and front-end developers, because sometimes I feel that designers might not think in terms of tags, how you can code the thing that they created with any design tool like Figma and so on. Because some elements might be just too complicated. Some free layer tables with a lot of elements inside each cell. It looks good, it's accessible. Designers have their own accessibility guidelines, which are coming from the same WCAG, and everything can be done according to those designs. But they're not like obliged to think how front-enders will code the stuff that they created. And this is the gap, which is in general in industry, it's not described everywhere. It's up to people to fill that gap by themselves.
From business perspective, can you give a number or percentage that if you have accessibility built in from a start, but you're going for designs and implementing everything with accessibility in mind, versus if you have accessibility as an afterthought, and how much more expensive that is?
I witnessed some project when accessibility came in the latest stages of the project, and as a result, the whole project was cancelled and started from the scratch.
That bad.
They decided not to release it at all because they will have much more problem with unsatisfied users.
So like at least backend was okay, right?
Backend
just
was okay.
Frontend had to be rewritten. Okay. So.
I heard the same information from about one startup. They were on in one step to release, and then they realized that they should be released in US, and they found out, and then they got some knowledge about WCAG, and they decided to not go live. Yeah.
And from designer's perspective, do we have sufficient tools supporting accessibility built in? Like you said that Figma, there was one Adobe, not Photoshop, something like different. Adobe.
There are plenty of tools. It's all about education. How are those practices? Are they in your craft and what you are doing? If the whole team is skilled enough, it won't add any significant cost. You just do the thing that you learn to do, and you get accessible product by default.
But like I believe there might be some misconception that accessibility in products would mean that everything looks the same. There's limits on like everything is round, like there's a big contrast, like blue, no, maybe not blue, like white and black, and like there's like monochromic views, like how you can like use the system so it to be accessible to everyone. Is
Like
that
what?
true? Is that true?
It will be definitely very accessible, yes, but again, we are building different system used in different conditions by different people, so we need to accept new reality. No one wants to black and white websites. There are a lot of new fancy technologies, and we have tools to support accessibility in all of them. The modern front-end JavaScript framework are being released pretty often. The React, Vue, Angular, everything can be done in the right way and be accessible and
Still look
it'll
good,
still
right?
look good, yeah. So it's only about the skills.
I had one project where client chose to save money and they first created designs. So they had only like limited amount of money. They didn't have designs and also development at the same year. So they first created designs. Then next year they started development, and then they come up with like, we need accessibility, and like designs didn't have that. Like we had to explain that this is what it's already written. It's not accessible. There are contrast issues. There are like elements which you wouldn't be able to easily, manipulate. So and yeah, we had to tell them that we need to redesign everything.
And what was reaction?
Bad. Yeah, we had to educate them that it's not that easy. Just like like boost the colors a bit. Just boost the colors, like make it more, contrasting.
More
But-
contrasty.
Yeah, contrasty colors. Oh yeah, that's easy. But like then you can probably lose brand identity, things like that, and there are things that you need to keep in mind before creating that. And if accessibility is an afterthought, like everything can go, like designs can go to bin.
That should be a part of conversation where designers have with the client, how to fit the design to the corporate colors and some branding, and how to implement it correctly later.
That's why we need to speak more about accessibility to I would say to remember also on design level that hey, there is something if you are planning something, please remember about accessibility. At least in first stage, it will be easier for all of us, also for designers, like to do not fix something, but to make from the first way.
But at the same time, I don't want to say that testers are the great guys who are pushing accessibility. Probably, well, accessibility consists of three domains, like three main domains: design, front-end, and testing. And basically, great accessibility experts and advocates coming from all three domains. I knew great designers who are doing the same stuff that we are trying to do here, and the same with front-enders.
Is it only start with the designs, or can it be like written in requirements, or is it usually support accessibility version?
So there's designs and also UX, right? User experience, and that one maybe not like always like visible in designs. It's like interactions. So those kind of could be a requirements.
Kind of some of the paragraphs in WCAG actually are about user experience. It's just general things that we all used to, that are convenient, that are easy to understand, just like general good practices. So when the project is started, when the level of accessibility is being defined, which depends on the state, on the country where the app will be used, then we can narrow the WCAG list.
I heard you guys mention VISG. So what is it? A book? A
Wait,
courses? A certificate?
It's fine.
VCAG. WCAG. VCAG.
Čia parašyti
It's
yra.
fine.
Yeah, it's-
no, you can read like this and you can correct, for example.
Oh.
No, it's fine.
We can
It's
sta-
it's an
It's
honest
more
mistake.
like-
This is professional.
Okay.
practice, okay? We don't make mistakes.
Okay.
Okay, so I
But
can
yeah.
start again, right?
Yeah.
So I heard you mention the WCAG. So what is it? Is it a book, courses, like a movie? What is it?
So its abbreviation has been pronounced in very different ways, depends how fluent you are. I prefer WCAG because it's the shortest way, but in some cases it's VCAG or WCAG. So basically in the 90s, when it became clear that internet and personal computers will be everywhere, and it became clear that we need to extend existing accessibility requirements that are applied to design, to the all environments, we need the same apply to the internet and to the to the modern technologies. So basically, a group of people, international group of people, created and still creating up to this day the list of guidelines how you can make your website or web application accessible. There are immense amount of work put by testers, by designers, by front-enders, by project managers, by lawyers, by any. But the thing is that it's kind of, it's free, you can Google it easily. But because it's an international effort which it doesn't belong to anyone, there is no country that requires actually do your stuff exactly as it is written in the WCAG.
So it's
Because
not like
you
ISO.
cannot, yeah, it's not a standard, but every law in every country which is speaking about accessibility in internet on mobile apps has a reference. So the page should be accessible, and how it can be accessible you can read, for example, in WCAG. So it's not a law by itself, but it is a place which is written in a very good way. Everyone likes it. It's so not to repeat the same work in every country. The governments decided just to put reference and like say do it like that. We can hear quite often that WCAG is referenced as the requirements, but from abbreviation we should always remember that these are only guidelines. And the main idea of all laws in all countries is that something should be accessible, and there are slight problems with the legal definition of what is being accessible. For example, ADA in United States decided they have a whole list of when we can say that the certain page is accessible. So it means that its page and the services that it provides could be accessible by certain groups of people, and there is the whole list. So, and in another chapter of the law, they are saying that to achieve that, you could look at the WCAG. So these are pretty good recommendations. You can follow them, and probably you will be accessible.
Okay,
then.
so they're saying it has to be accessible and gives a list, but how to do it, you can look if you want, but it's not mandatory to look there.
Yes, because if there will be some problems in the court, no one will be checking WCAG step by step. Did you perform that? Did you implement this requirement? They will be looking at the people who are trying to get some kind of service, to do some actions on the page, and if they are stuck, if it's impossible to do that, that means that page is inaccessible. So we need to separate WCAG implementation from being accessible. WCAG implementation is kind of recommended way that most probably will bring you to the accessible product, but it's not the same.
But it's good to have and use during your development and testing.
Yes, it's main source that you can use for everyone, because there are chapters written for designers, there are chapters written for front-end engineers. So it's a main source for the whole team, but blind implementation of WCAG just step by step, paragraph by paragraph, it doesn't equal to full accessibility.
So there are rules, but you still need to have some kind of
understanding how
skill to implement them in the best possible way.
Yes, and we need to remember that WCAG recommendations, they has like 3 levels of conformance and like A, AA, and AAA, and we need to remember that all the like standards, legal, that's not standards maybe, but recommendations, they are watching to WCAG A level or AA level, for example, the same ADA or European standard for digital accessibility, and they are linking their resources to WCAG, WCAG 2.1 version. WCAG has different versions also, and to AA level or middle level. So lowest level, this is minimal level of accessibility, and AA level, medium level of accessibility, which contains all the recommendations from basic level or A level. So like.
So this document, this is bigger, very important document. It has 3 lines or 3 levels for each accessibility requirement. They have 3 levels, right?
Not like for each, but for
most of them.
Most of them.
So
yes.
it can be almost accessible, like decent accessible and extremely accessible, or something like that?
No.
Okay. So
We can analyze, say, A-level recommendations, but as you told, this is must-have.
Yes.
It's totally must-have. And without A-level, you can't proceed to AA level, I would say. So, for example, A-level recommendations, captions pre-recorded, this is A-level. This is must-have. If you have some video, you need to provide captions for all the people, for people with disabilities, for all of us who are like trying to listen or observe some video in public transport. But captions for live, this is AA level. This is also must-have. It will be super great to have if you have some live video, for example, yeah? But it's not...
okay, so if video is like a recording, you must have captions. If video is live, like I'm showing a live interview on some random people on the street, how can you even do live captions
Yes,
for that kind of video?
We have automatic live captions, like for example in YouTube, they have possibility. And if you...
Well, I've seen them
if you
in
have
YouTube,
meeting,
but never on TV.
Yes, but okay, live captions during the meeting. If you you will have a meeting in Google Meets, you can turn on
Okay,
live captions. They have, and it's great. It's working great, really.
Okay.
And this is about accessibility, and this is also a middle level, not AAA, like some specific level. This is something what already in place in some services who are providing some videos and live videos.
Okay, and what would be an example of AAA?
Sign language for
Sign
pre-record.
language.
So live captions and sign language is level 3.
Like standard audio description, for example, and the media alternative and audio only, for example. But I would say good example like sign language, because this is not needed if like I would say we need to have some text alternative for any video. If it can be captions, it can be text alternative or like transcript. It's also A level. But we somehow need to provide textual information to, for example, why it's needed. Screen reader can catch this text and provide and move to synthetic speech, for example. If a person can't see captions also, but this person can open a special file, for example, or a section on this page, and turn screen reader and hear all this the same information, but we are taking this information from text.
So it's very important to understand that WCAG is not a static thing. It evolves. Its new versions are being released, like we already mentioned, that the most popular version which describes web is 2.0, but then there were released 2.1 and 2.2 is going to be released soon, where we can see more paragraphs which are about mobile applications. And they are being new paragraphs are being added according to the new technologies that emerged, and also sometimes paragraph might migrate from, for example, level AA to level 1A. It's easier to implement them, and this part became so popular again due to mobile phones that they decide that it must have, not it's more important to have it than it was before.
Accessibility testing for mobile phones, is it more difficult or same as the web? And what are the differences? Like I believe interaction is one of the main difference, but what others?
From my experience, it depends on the architecture of the application, because if we are doing a lot of web apps which are being just wrapped or viewed on the mobile, but basically it's the same page that you can open on your computer, you can test it, but it's transformed a bit when you're opening on the mobile phone. In that case, it's quite easy. It's different when a native application is written. Basically, when we are doing something, let's say with screen reader, it's a screen reader conversation of the screen reader with the HTML code. If we're creating a native application, it works differently. I cannot say if it's more difficult, it's just different.
How Tab is working on mobile?
I would say same as on
Same.
desktop. Should work same
Well,
as.
for example,
What
if
do you need to press in order to
no,
have
you
tab
perform
functionality?
well, if we are speaking about iOS, Apple mobile phone, then there is a such thing called rotor, which is basically a wheel. It's a wheel which allows to select through what kind of elements you want to tab. It's
Is
a
it
wheel.
like additional item on your phone, or just like
it's on the screen over
on
all
the
your
screen, okay.
application, and you can like spin it and chase headers, links, buttons, and you choose the type of element, and then with a certain actions on the screen, focus will go through that.
So this is totally okay to have Bluetooth keyboard connected to some tab or iPad, for example, but Magic Keyboard, for example, it's totally okay for Apple products, yeah. But if we are talking about Android Bluetooth keyboard, or really we have like some switch devices like access like a switch device with two buttons or one big red button, for example, you can set up this like for like 2 clicks to go into the next, for example, yeah. But
There are both
devices.
software and hardware tools
Yes.
that you can use, and you can do everything on the mobile.
So from what I heard from you, accessibility testing is mainly, but now you will have to fix me. So it's a contrast that the text would be readable, right? It's the size of the text, it's the text to speech or other signs. And then you mentioned some kind of, like Nikolai asked, tabs. So that's like, if I can't use the mouse on the computer, right, I should tab through the elements and select them one by one, right?
So what you said now, you mentioned 4 paragraphs of WCAG from different places, but in general, there in the last versions there are more than 80.
Yeah, like
We
in pictures, you should have alternative text, right? It's a simple thing. If you have a picture, if you need to have
So that
alternative text,
narrator or reader could
yeah,
read it out,
exactly.
right?
Like
Okay.
there are some specific rules how you need to structure your DOM elements in order for it to be like how you can use Navigator, right? So how you can navigate the application, like headers, then maybe some other elements, and you can use that with landmarks and other things that you can add, like easier the application navigation. If you don't build it according to that like rules, you will have a broken application from navigation perspective from readers.
and 40 or 50 plus additional recommendations for WCAG 2.1 AA level. There are 50 actual recommendations. This like we need to remember that if we are talking about, for example, a European Act, like this like it's related to all these accessibility recommendations based on WCAG 2.1 AA level. But good news for developers and testers that we can skip some recommendations. For example, if we have no video content, we are skipping all the recommendations which are related with video or audio content. Like, okay, we can ignore them because we have no such elements. So a lot of recommendations, the WCAG recommendations are related to some kind of UI elements or some flows. You have like only, I don't know, maybe informational web page, for example, yeah, without any registration form, but with one email recommendation about understandable error messages will be applied only to one a text field, most probably, and like a combination text field plus button, for example. Yeah, you should not test overall all the elements on this recommendation. So I would say that accessibility testing is super related with analysis of this whole product and web page or mobile application. So I would say, and what we need to start and what we are doing and what we are spending a lot of time, we are analyzing to provide correct timelines when we can finish, for example, this, yeah, or when we can provide some information on, for example, dividing accessibility testing on 2 phases. It's okay. It's one way how to do. And first way, we can test on A level and provide information how you are accessible on A level. If you have a lot of issues related with this basic level, yeah, it's red flag. So most probably Google you will not be in Google search on first place because it's also related. Google is supporting accessible products, and if you are more accessible, you will be on like top of the search results. Yes, this is also about SEO. Yeah, and a lot of recommendations related to SEO are not the same, but super related with accessibility.
There is no like written requirements for accessibility. You have to know them from either this guide or just on your own, right? So when it tell you test accessibility, you just need to get the name of the region or country, know the laws there, then know what kind of rules they need, and then
know what kind of system you are testing, and then diminish the whole list of WCAG, and
then you get your requirements.
And then you get more or less yes.
But that's really bad because you might uncover like lots of missed requirements. So basically you just provided a project with list of stories to be done, which you didn't plan or intended to do. Because if I imagine the project planning, it was like accessibility testing, like 3 hours or something. That's how they planned such things. And then you say, okay, we have 76 points which will need to be implemented on our 14 pages of application. And everyone is like, okay,
that's
cancel
why I'm
this
talking
project.
About the shift left, that there should be a person who will start this conversation in the beginning, that if the system that is going to be built is going to be big, there will be a lot of things to test. And it's a very important part.
That's why we need to try to trigger these topics at the start of the project and in the start of providing designs. If we are building application not in region where these laws are in place, but we need to remember, first of all, most probably this application can be used by people in different countries. And you are losing your user base, your user base. Okay, so I placed in country when this law is not in place, but I'm ignoring another country users. They will select another application which is more accessible, for example.
And also you need to know, like, if I'm releasing this product in, for example, United States or so, and maybe now it complies to the laws, and you know that, I don't know, they announced that, I don't know, let's guess 2025, they will take another law, so your application after 3 years will be illegal?
No.
No?
No, next standards are including all the previous recommendations of WCAG. For example, WCAG 2.2 will include all the same WCAG 2.1 recommendations. Only one change will be in place for focus visible, I think, which will be placed from medium to must-have level to A level. We need to remember that focus should be visible by default for all the users. We need to remember this. Yes, but then WCAG 2.2 have additional recommendations, but they are not changing requirements for for previous recommendations. So it means
it's backwards compatible.
Yes, exactly.
But there are maybe more which when you will need to also be. Yeah, so
Might
it's
be.
like if there's a new version, if you don't update the app, you might not be you can be
But again, if it applies to your user interface elements,
it might be not relevant to your project.
But there are still things that you need to update your application.
It's not one-time job, of course. You need to monitor all the time. Yeah.
And you need a person who would look at it and tell if it applies to your elements or it doesn't.
Exactly, but this is also about development. This is about some updates for some libraries. It's the same.
It's the whole team who is supporting that all the time. So
these changes are not random. This, for example, the WCAG 2.2 version is in draft for 2 years already, more than 2 years, I think.
And they're still updating it.
Yeah, still updating. They have a lot of conversations about some recommendations. So a lot of discussions better to do this or this. Why we need to include target size, for example, because we are already explaining this in some recommendation in AAA level, and to be honest, if you can check some charts about this WCAG 2.2. I really like these discussions, like whole discussion about target size, why we need to change this pixel or no, it was covered in previous version or no. But I would say that if you have person who is responsible for accessibility at least on high level, this person should have this knowledge about accessibility and about newest version.
All the governments are much slower than the people who are writing the requirements. So 2.0 came out long time ago, but many countries are still have 2.0 in their laws, because it's a slow process.
Because you need to update the law, right?
Yeah. And it's much smaller than those people who are writing for 2 years.
But also, speaking about this, the European standard for digital accessibility, for example, they are open for WCAG 2.2, and they, as I remember, they told that as soon as WCAG 2.2 will be released officially, they will review their requirements, and most probably they will update this information. So European regulations are quite fast.
Yeah, and they mentioned AAA. Not something that should be implemented, but kind of look at it. There is such thing as AAA, and you can make yourself familiar with that. And they provide more freedom to member states. That, for example, in the United States, states there doesn't have so much freedom as European countries. And some country might decide they have to take the core as it is decided for the whole European Union, but they can add their own features. So if Lithuania decides that Sodra should be AAA, they can do it.
But then it creates kind of a headache if you're a company which wants to release a product in Europe and you need to collect the whole list from every country in order.
Yes.
Or just block your application in that country.
Well, maybe that's easier solution.
Easier. There's only a few
but no,
users,
you should know where you operate, and you should know all the stuff that's happening in those countries.
It's already really tough to make a worldwide web, because you have United States with 51 states with different laws for taxes, Europe Union, which now you have to calculate taxes for each country. Now you have looks and feel, which is different or more or less different. It's getting
Welcome
tougher
to accessibility.
to release applications.
It's not tough to release. You can release everything. The question is what's happening later. What is happening if you are not accessible, or if you are not completely accessible? That's the question, because everyone is scared by the cases happening in the United States. When the Domino Pizza case started, the whole avalanche of everything, because it was the first case when a blind person won the court, and it was based on ADA. That wasn't happened before, because again, ADA doesn't say directly about how compliance should look like. ADA says that people should not be discriminated. And
in all areas of life.
In all areas of life, and that was the line that helped to win the case. And then they used this case as a precedent and just hell broke loose. It's the amount of cases is rising, I think, each year there. But we are in Europe, and it's different here. Taking the public sector in Europe, the requirements are more friendly. In European Union, they decided that all public, let's say, portals, they should have a mechanism how user can provide feedback. And the user should receive some kind of answer. And if the answer is bad or not correct, then the user should have a possibility to file a case through another agency. It looks like for now that, speaking about public sector in Europe, they provide more freedom for conversation between unsatisfied user and the owner of the site. It's not directly that I cannot do something, that's it, I go to court and I will win $1 million. Actually, I think it's written somewhere that no one should benefit financially if there is an unsatisfied user which files a complaint against public site. This dispute should be solved in some another way. It's not the same court system as they have in the United States. In Europe, the processes are different. So when you are saying that you should not release something somewhere, we need to ask why. What will be if you are not accessible? Maybe it's not so bad. Maybe there will be some governmental bodies that will help you to achieve the level of accessibility that is needed here. No one knows what will happen in private sector, because private sector United States, that's when everything happened. But in Europe, it's still 3 years, and people who are writing these documents, they are quite closed. I haven't found any information what they are preparing.
Oh, so they are like doing it behind closed door.
It seems so. Public sector looks good. I like the system that no one should benefit financially. I like the system that they require to have a mechanism for conversation between user
Oh,
and...
that's actually pretty ingenious. I think it's way
Yeah.
better than going to the court, spending
They
their
don't have
unknown
it in
amount
United
of
States.
time. And
It's pure European stuff to have a form for feedback, to have a form for complaint, and to provide the answer in certain amount of time.
Yes, but it doesn't mean that we can ignore accessibility. We need to build
No, of
accessibility.
course.
Yes, but I would say public sector also, it's so good to add some informational message, for example, accessibility regulations or something else, when they can share like, hey, we are working on accessibility. We already fixed color contrast, focus order, focus visible, for example, but we still have some issues related with error messages, for example, yes, with some captions, but we are working on it. It's super cool to provide information that, hey, we are working on it. Maybe you can have some problems with this, but please go ahead, ask us for this information, but we are open to you.
And basically, we care.
Yes, we care. Yeah, at least we fixed something.
you're really energetic when you start talking, but it's really so complicated. I don't want to start.
And that's why it's interesting, by the way.
And if
It's
what
like-
security testing was hard.
It's actually it sounds simpler now.
So basically, WCAG was going into the same direction for many years. They decided the structure pretty early in the days. They are just adding some paragraphs with each version, some paragraphs on top of the existing one. There are a lot of gray zones in WCAG how to do things. There might be some very not clear explanation. For example, one of principles is called understandable, but you don't know exactly is it understandable or not. For me, it might be understandable. There are no very clear definitions.
It's ambiguous.
Yeah, they were trying to release a thing called ACT, which is like some kind of testing guidelines. But it's quite small document. When I heard about them and how they're advertising it, I was expecting to see the whole list, but it's quite small. I think they abandoned working on it, and they decided to create WCAG 3.0, which is not the same direction, but the whole new approach to WCAG. Basically, they are leaving the same requirements, but they do not structure in the same way. They do not have A level. They want to have like gold, silver, bronze levels. They also want to make it less technical and more user-centered. But what is important, they still are saying, at least for now, that when 3.0 will be released, it's not the new road, it's parallel. If some places, some countries, some laws will decide to go with 3.0, they can do it. If some other ones want to ignore it, that's also fine. They can still choose
Use
2.0, 2.2, which is more standard.
Good and bad. Now we'll have two different standards
Yes,
with
yes.
lots of points.
That's why I have this mixed feeling, because what I need, for example, when discussing with clients about testing, like accessibility testing, what we need to do, what we need to select, how explain, what is better. I don't know. Also, I checked some information, but I still confused, I would say.
There's going to be, there's going to be a third option, a mix of both.
yes, exactly. Maybe it's totally okay, but I would say that it can be confusing also from client side if we are going on correct way. Like for example, and also for me, like when we are planning or something. But let's see. I think they will have some updates.
Yeah,
And,
it's a fancy naming. I mean, I can imagine how law can refer to AA. It sounds strict, but now the law will we will go with bronze, for example. It doesn't
Like Olympics.
sound. Yeah.
if we would like to give advice how to start accessibility testing, for example, there will be now more push into having accessibility embedded in Europe and the other countries. So we will need to do more accessibility testing in the future. I assume this is correct thinking. So if I'm never done accessibility testing, where should I start my journey? What sources I can use? How I can start developing those skills so I can do accessibility testing?
You can check some courses, for example, external courses, which you can explain why accessibility is so important. And usually these courses are sharing information about top 10 or 15 general criteria. For example, how you can test alternative text, how you can test focus order, and usually they are sharing some information how you can do this using some web extensions, for example, free. This is also how I am learning, teaching people, hey, it's hard to know all the, for example, 50 recommendations of actual WCAG. For me, it's WCAG 2.1 AA. Yeah, we are thinking of from this perspective, because this are usually used during testing and for all the products. Usually, not always. I would say courses, it's good.
Do you have any you can recommend maybe sources where we can give links in description? So
my absolute favor is the Q University. It's not free, it costs, but it's a huge database of design front-end and testing knowledge and project management knowledge as well.
So as a beginner, you can go there or you need to be more advanced?
No.
But you need to be more advanced, I would say.
They're trying to explain everything from the basics, so they are not throwing you directly to some technical stuff. Testing part is explained from the basics. But to start, I would say to start not from the courses, but from the practice. Elīna mentioned already some browser extensions, and many of them have links to some internal databases. So basically, you can take a very bad page, find some bad example of accessibility.
Any page, usually.
Or any page, and run the browser extension, get the report, and they just go error by error, every reported thing, and going into the internal database, because every normal modern tool has its internal database when they can provide information even more than in WCAG. Why this is important, who will benefit if you fix it, how to fix it, even with links to some front-enders community and so on. So I guess the way from the practice with examples is a good one. And then proceed with courses, with certifications and so on.
Sometimes extensions can catch totally incorrect defects, or false positive. Yeah, yes, exactly. So it's good to start, but please don't think that this is only source and the correct source of information. Sometimes they have also bugs, incorrect recommendations attached to this to this defect. For example, why we need also manual testing. Some image can have alternative text, but at the same time, this alternative text is QWERTY and something else. And the extension usually didn't catch that this is this alternative text is not describing.
Because it's a task of completely different level, how to understand the context, what exactly should be written. It's something from artificial intelligence, and maybe will be implemented in the future, but not now.
How many of the accessibility issues can be caught by automation tool, and how many of them can't? So you need to do that extra step manually.
The percentage of how many defects can be found in the early stages just by scanning the code is probably the main weapon between the competitors of different tools. Everyone is given their own percent, and very often there is no very clear background how they did calculate it. Back in the days, everyone was talking about between 30 and 40%. I remember that there was a company, it still is, but it's not so successful as it was before, called Tenon, and they were saying, we found 37, and everyone was like, whoa, how do you did that? Now I think they are coming more into 50s, 60s numbers, but again, it's hard to measure.
But I had some statistics that maximal 20% of actual defects can be found using these extensions, because really a lot of false positive. Also, you can test, for example, a focus order, if it is a meaningful focus order. Yeah. Okay. Some extensions can help with this testing. For example, accessibility insights for web. You can select focus order testing, for example, and then you will have like number first, second, third, and you have this schema this attached. Like you can create screenshot and attach in your defects, for example, and it's super visible and understandable for management, for developers, and they can see like some lags in focus order. For example, we can use this. These web extensions are super good, but like additional source, additional tool for testing. But we need to remember that main approach is manual testing.
Manual testing, but you can use extension and tools to help you do your manual
testing. But you
testing.
need to know how to work with them. You need to understand what they're saying to you. Not everything what is written is true. Some of them are giving you a possibility to test against, not only find errors, but find if there are violations of best practices. And some of the practices appeared back in the days when there were many browsers, many screen readers, and the amount of different combinations was just insane. And you can still find in front-end forums, conversation and tables, which combinations of which browsers and screen readers, which versions, like certain constructs of diffs, where you can put area label, where you cannot do it. And if you do it in one way, these three combinations will work fine, but these three will not work fine, so don't do that. So there are a lot of good practices that maybe need to be reviewed, but they are still incorporated into some of the automatic tools.
And there is no like a standard which would be unified against all of them?
There are no standard, but somehow it is being unified. In some projects we have a list of bugs which developers cannot fix, and we find the same bugs, for example, in the online backlog of screen reader developer or some framework, and we review the same bugs after 6 months, and half of them are gone because constantly everyone is releasing new versions. Browser, screen readers, some frameworks, everyone is working on it, and probably accessibility now is in every release. It's getting better, it's getting unified. It's much better than it was 6 years ago. Everything is going more or less in the same direction.
How many screen readers there are, and how do you test them? Are they different for Mac? And let's focus only now on web application on PC, like two kinds of PCs, Windows and Mac.
Linux.
Well, yes, Linux. There is Linux.
There is one for Linux as well, yeah. There are a lot, but as we say in classical testing, 100% coverage is not possible, so we need to prioritize. We need to seek for most popular combination. There is a company called WebAIM. Each 2 years they're releasing the huge survey, which they are taking information from many people with different disabilities, from their how they behave, what are they using, which features they do like, which they don't, and you can use that survey to understand where we are going. We can compare few last ones, and we can see, for example, that on Windows, NVDA and JAWS basically are the two screen readers that are left, and they share the market 50-50. And if we take earlier version of the same survey, we can see that there were some other ones from other, or Windows, the one that is
Windows native one.
Yeah.
I really struggle to turn it off when I turn it on unintentionally.
So basically you use statistics. You can see what is...
So there is a list often. And now there are two narrators
on
for
Windows,
right?
They completely conquer the market 50-50.
On all
JAWS
the browsers, right?
On Chrome. Well, funny thing, JAWS was built for Internet Explorer, and NVDA was built for Firefox. They both work best on Chrome now, and they're being used on Chrome mostly.
Okay, and for Mac?
For Mac, there is VoiceOver. It's a native. It's very good.
Oh, so native
VoiceOver
on Safari,
with Safari,
right?
it's perfect combination.
It's also perfectly working with Chrome.
Not all of them are free to use, right?
Jaws are not free. It's quite expensive. I still have no idea why it's still alive because they charge, I think, it's 1,000 for license.
If a person has official disability, it's
funded by in the countries when there is a funding program, it can be funded for you, but it's expensive, but it's good.
So only one of those, like voiceover, is free?
Yeah, it goes together with operating system. It's pre-installed already.
NVDA is
NVDA is free. You can donate if you want, but it's free.
Well, Mac is a winner in this race.
Yeah.
And they have a very nice voice on the voiceover.
Like a nice voice?
Yeah. I mean, everyone has nice voice, but NVDA you have to search for the voices. There are many combinations. You can change the pitch, you can change male, female, but voiceover comes with the good voice already. I like that.
Okay.
All the people will enable and check this voiceover.
That's what I was thinking.
I mean, it's not so good as you might expect, but if you worked with the first voice synthesizer on NVDA, which was pure robotic voice, then you will like a voiceover. So maybe I'm just damaged.
Is it better than Google Translate voice?
Yes.
Okay, then I will try it.
And also TalkBack for Android.
Yeah, for Android there's a TalkBack. That one I struggle to turn off.
So what are the main challenges for test engineers doing accessibility testing?
First of all, I would say if we are testing and we are checking some information in the WCAG, you can be lost here. Really, sometimes not all the recommendations has information how to test some recommendations, first of all. Second, you need to adapt. They have a couple of examples, but we have different situations, and we have newer UI elements, for example. Yeah, so you need to think and you need to adapt this recommendation and think how to test, for example. Second challenge, I think, like the screen reader, for example, if you are starting, then screen reader is totally challenge how to enable, how to disable. You need to know it's not only shortcuts, and you need to check information how people who are actually working on day by day with this, like main scenarios. For example, what shortcuts they are using, for example, the most popular, for example. So this is also not randomly checking and typing like with 2 fingers or 3 or different like tabbing, but you need to make some research on this. And third problem, it's hard to define what should be actual result. So okay, I see actual result is it's not accessible and I can't understand, but how we can define this expecting result? So you need again to go to WCAG, for example, then you need to check some requirements of product. You need to check something with maybe product owner or designers or something else if it's possible, because I can share like minimal contrast should be 3:1, for example. Okay, but maybe it's not possible totally in this case. And and how I can provide a color code of this, correct color code? No, I need to I need to ask designer and I need to ask some management who can approve. So this not 5 minutes. Sometimes you need to spend some days to define this expected result.
And one of the examples that we had, for example, in the project, it's I mentioned already. I called the gray zone. I have some fancy names for different stuff in accessibility. For example, we have a model which is basically saying that congratulations, and there is a close button. Everything is fine with that. We can give to screen reader to write it all away that there is a congratulating model, and your focus is on a close button. You can close it right away. You understand what is happening. Then model might get bigger. There are some form might appear, some more fields. There is a moment when you're starting to think how much of the information we should give to user right away on the opening the model, or maybe it's too much and we just need to say that it's opened, there is such an information, and then we rely on user to go through the model and read the whole information, what is there. And there is no answer to that question. It's not written in WCAG, it's not written anywhere. Like the main advice that you can find is that you should have a lot of end users, native screen reader users, and you need to get just the affinity of majority from them, what is convenient, because it's not, there are a lot of not very convenient things implemented because someone knew a guy, there is such thing, and knew a guy, he does it in such way. I asked him, he said like that. One person, if it's, even if it's screen reader user, it's still one person. So one opinion, it doesn't count. So the general advice, which is very hard to achieve, is just to have an army of users and make service on every possible issue which is not described in WCAG.
Or you can really run accessibility usability session.
Yeah. If you can organize it,
Yes.
if you can find.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. That's why it's so related.
So
Like,
what is usability session?
I would say that the main idea of this usability session is to define one problem, for example, or one task, and you are selecting your audience, like a main audience, or some. It depends on the main goal of this usability session, but you are providing some task for a person, and the person is in ideal world. It should be like 2 laboratories. Like one with observer, one with the person under test, for example, you are providing maybe new functionality with some 2 or 3 tasks, for example, and try to log in, try to do something like, okay, let's say 3 tasks, and you are observing. Usually there should be some web camera, for example, and observers. They are fixing all the movements of a person. Maybe like person reads this task, okay, and then we see that we have some pause. For example, it's hard to find a register button. Maybe it's not usable. It's not natural from a user perspective, and observers are fixing all these issues. Then they have recording also of this, and usually they are analyzing user behavior.
So like if I did like.
No.
That's
it's also
bad.
like it's really, if it's for example, if it's easy to find register button, if it's easy to find some help, for example, if you are talking about this one, you can provide 2 pages, for example, with one
Set of
instructions, for example, and UI elements, and with different. And for example, you can analyze how many time users spent to understand.
So basically, you get some volunteers or people who are probably or likely is going to use your application. You get them in some kind of controlled environment.
Yes.
You give them a task and see
You observe, and
which
analyze.
did best or with least amount of negative emotions. Something like that.
Yes.
Or fastest.
Yeah.
So have you tried to get the data of your products you developed and tested like accessibility for it? Was there any users who used that? And did we give you any feedback?
I haven't received any feedback from our clients when we did something, but no one was sued.
So that's good.
So you don't receive positive feedback, but also didn't receive negative feedback.
Which is good.
Balance.
I know that some clients are taking sessions with disabled people and making receiving some feedback and analyzing some defects.
Is it in Latvia or?
It's NDA.
NDA, okay. But I mean, it would be hard probably to find a group in.
Sometimes it depends on task, of course. Also, you can select, for example, if you have some specific audience, you can select, for example, only people who are blind. Or if this is startup and you need to test usability overall, for example, or something else, and you need to test how you can find new clients, for example. So then you are most probably will request people, hey, if you don't know what is our product, please help us and go to this session. So it depends really if it's new user or if it's user who is already using your application. Then you can ask for some feedback. Is it better, like new feature better or no? For new clients, for new totally new users, it's also super interesting because for you as developers or designers, for example, you can find anything, but it's really, really interesting to observe how totally new users trying to
First time interacting with your
interact,
application.
to search some issues, search some features. For example, please make test, for example, for this. And if person don't know what is this test, for example, or this product, first of all, this person should take and get information what is this product, and then how to create this product or add some product. It's a big amount of work, but it's also related with accessibility. It's if you have some these situations, it's totally fine to organize these sessions. And this described in the ISTQB usability tester. They have instructions, I would say, how to run these sessions. That's why I think that ISTQB usability testing also must have for people with who are working on accessibility.
It's a very interesting topic when we do a research and we need to have some focus group. We need to understand how people are behaving. I think it's a very interesting topic, and it's very connected to your questions about the main challenge that testers might have. They have another fancy word. I call it mental trap. Let's say me or someone else performing accessibility testing as a part of normal testing process is basically the problem is that we are looking at the screen and we are seeing too much information from the screen, and that creates some problems. For example, one of the cases that I did by myself, I did a mistake, but I caught it in time. There was a quite complicated table with a lot of elements, and in one of the cells there were many different elements inside the cell. And I was trying to catch them with screen reader. So I was trying different shortcuts, navigating with the shortcuts related to table, then going inside the cell, trying to find the element that I wanted. There was one button that was quite tricky to find. And when I found this button, finally, I was able to put focus on it. I saw the correct message in the screen reader speech viewer. I was happy for a second, but then I understood that there is a big problem in such a process, because first of all, I saw that the element is there, and then I was trying to find it, while the correct approach would be quickly understand that there is such kind of information. So when a sighted user does accessibility testing with a screen reader, it is very important to differentiate what information you get for sighting, and you are taking it for granted, and then you are just putting it's inside your testing, which is not correct. You should be completely in the screen reader, not in the screen of the page that you are testing in.
Because you have a reference and you know where you are.
Yeah, and you know what to look for.
It's like playing a strategic game with the map open.
Yeah.
But it's hard to put a blind eye on it and imagine that you don't know when you know.
It's a constant mental effort, to understand what information do I see and what is in the screen reader. There's an extremely simple test that I give to students in our Sorcery Academy. There's a search field, and if you start to write in the search field, there is a cross appearing on the right edge of the search field. What kind of text you will put on the cross?
Clear.
Closed.
That's the problem, because you already see that the cross is inside the search field, and you are making assumption that it's clear the search. But for the screen reader user, when they press tab from the search field to the cross button, it's not clear that focus is still inside. So we need to be specific that it's clear the search, not just clear. There's a lot of these things that we get through sighting.
Yeah, we imagine it's in one place, but when we tab,
so we put context there.
Yeah.
Ourselves.
Yeah.
So if I'm a business and I want to have accessibility in my system, what options I have to do that?
So the first option, which happens pretty often, is that the accessibility team organically grows in your own IT department. There are some people appearing that wants to do that, and you basically get an accessibility department. As with other types of services, there is also option to have external team, hire another vendor who will do that. But I think in the first place there should be understanding of the company that accessibility is not a one-time job; it's a process, and it should be maintained, it should be evaluated. There should be some processes ongoing, not only in testing but in development. Sooner or later, this becomes just a financial questions. Is it convenient and efficient for you to have your own team, or all the time pay money to someone else which is outside? Among our clients, I saw both cases. We had a pretty big names in DA who had their own teams, who wanted that we would be their accessibility teams, and there was a mixed approach that they want to have their own team, but also they want that we would cooperate with their internal accessibility teams. So if the goal to have accessibility process for a long time and the goal to have accessible product, it's a good goal, it's fine, and then it's only questions of prioritizations of money, and it might be solved in different ways. It's easier to build accessibility team in the United States.
Yes, exactly.
Why?
Probably because ADA stuff with the Domino Pizza scared them all, so people just saw the possibility that there is...
so it's easier because people are afraid and
People are afraid, and there are more jobs
they're
related to it.
open.
Actually, it's getting more jobs in Lithuania which require accessibility, but mostly from designers and front-enders. I am like I subscribed to accessibility keyword in all
Advertisement site.
here in Vilnius, and for a few years in a row we were the only ones who were requiring accessibility from test engineers. 2 years ago maybe it's exploded, and now it's in every front end, every designer, not in every but very often. So there is some kind of understanding that we will need more specialists. It's not much about testing, but mostly about development in design, but it's still a good direction.
Same in Latvia, but also we need to remember that, of course, this information about accessibility and about this directive, European are like also growing. We have this information around. That's why people starting to taking a look at this topic. So yeah, it's totally natural, I would say. And it will be interesting to compare these results with 2024, for example.
I was listening to one lecture when people were trying to describe the differences between United States and European regulations, and there was an insane number of work that still needs to be done. Even though in Europe the public sector is already covered, we already require to be accessible, there are still, by the lowest amount, 7 million public sites through the European Union that still need to be fixed. It's the lowest number. If you take all the countries in the European Union and everywhere where this law is already in place, it's millions.
Sweden, they have their own accessibility statement, and this is also actual for, I'm not sure about for a private sector, but at least for some kind of applications, for example, healthcare applications, they need to be accessible on the same like this, for example, WCAG.
I would like to hear from your side as well. What are the benefits of hiring outsourcing just for accessibility?
I would say I like outsourcing because I would say that having a team, dedicated team for accessibility in place, for example, it depends, of course, on the company size. Of course, yeah. If it's okay from financial side to have this accessibility team internally, it's okay. But I would say if you have one product, you will think how to manage their time, but their time are not so cheap. I would say. So this is why I like situation when company has 2 or a couple of people dedicated, I would say managers maybe, or people who are responsible for accessibility, for whole accessibility in company. And then we are trying to search some outsourcing company. Why? You can select testers level, you can select testers count. And for example, if you have some release, you can add some testers For example, additional testers, if you have like something burning, you can select 5 testers, then you can stay, only 2 or 3 testers can stay on like daily, doing some testings on daily basis. This is like if we are talking about company perspective, you can manage.
Also, they would not have this mind trap, right? Where
Yes.
you might add someone who never seen the system before.
Yes. Also, this is good. For example, usually outsourcing companies, they have different experience. They have seen like different projects with different levels and issues with like which are like related with accessibility. So this is not only about accessibility, but usually outsourcing companies, they have great experience. Like we have new functional team for healthcare application, but it's okay. Some people can be from healthcare sector, but some people can from some with another background. But it helps to catch some interesting defects also. If we are talking about accessibility, it's really super cool feature. Like if tester has more than, for example, 5 projects experience. And he or she has knowledge of good practices, of bad practices, for example, But if you are internal accessibility tester, is like have experience only with with only one and your product, I see it like risk.
So experiencing 5 different projects in accessibility, is it because of WCAG and it has lots of details, and if you work in one project you will not cover them all, and in 5 projects you will probably gather all of the
it's like random count, but as if you have more than 2 at least projects, you can understand that there is no correct way, only one correct way how to fix some defect. You can fix this with area, you can fix this with another possibility, and sometimes testers who has like not super big experience, they are like, hey, expected result, you need to, it should be like working like this and this, please use only area in this case. And developers, for example, please add some area attributes like this and this, but maybe it's not possible in this solution, in this project. But tester know only this how this solution can be fixed.
He knows only one way to that destination.
Yes. But we need to remember that accessibility defects can be fixed really in different ways, sometimes in 3 different ways. You can fix it like on front end. Sometimes you can fix like by adding or deleting some elements and adding totally new. Maybe we need to redesign.
Maybe we need to remove this page. It's
too
hard to fix it.
Exactly.
It's quite expensive because you already spent money and time to build it, and now you have to.
But with this, it crosses with functional defects and accessibility defects, and then some like security gaps. So it's like quite good mix to to redesign something.
Oh, maybe. So are you saying that if it has bad accessibility or usability, it probably means that it also has lots of defects in other areas?
Yes, by the way, sometimes on front end, maybe I would say no.
It's red flag that something is wrong in the process. Where it will fire, we don't know. Maybe functional part will also, or maybe somewhere else. What also Elīna is saying between lines, and I think it's very important to emphasize why we were talking about testers with 5 project experience. When you hire additional team, you're like looking for, let's say, native screen readers who wants to participate in research and help you to do something some more accessible. You need to understand that they might be very far away from IT. They might be just regular users, and you need to have additional layer of conversation between those people, their feedback, and your development team. And their provided feedback should be also converted into some stories, analyzed into some more material that will take by the technical team. It's hard to find accessibility tester who is native screen reader and who has like years working in IT in different projects.
If I would have one training and 3 different people, like front-end developer, business analyst, or designer, right, and tester, whom should I send to the trainings, who would bring the biggest bang for the buck, so to speak?
You want to take only one?
I can take only one, yeah.
It sounds like a joke setup, like
Well, but
free.
I would say this is classical. Like we
Lithuanian,
got budget for
Latvian,
one.
I
goes to the
think
bar.
I think you should interview them all and try to find where is the person who is likely to be advocate of accessibility, but which role it will be.
So it
It's
doesn't matter,
secondary.
right? Like,
There should be a passionate person. It might be in all three. You just need to find that one.
strange. I kind of expected, like that if I'm choosing a team to perform a project, right, and I know that there is one developer who is really good at it, I know that there is somewhere like one business analyst and one tester, and I thought that you were going to give me a hint, like I need to get that person on this project because accessibility will be very important, and I know that he is doing a good job. So which one will do the best job? Does this change
I
at the
haven't
station,
found the correlation between speciality and impact on accessibility.
I would say testers are pushing this
More
more active, and I would say if by analyzing some good accessibility defects, anyone can benefit. Maybe it's related because I'm actually tester, and I'm proactive. Like
I wanted to say that, but I
Yes.
decided we all are testers, so we decided not to promote
Yes.
ourselves. But
no,
No, we are the
promoting.
best ones, of course, from the group. Like,
But if it's good also software development process, testers are participating in all the stages.
if you don't have active tester, but you have active designer, you should
Yeah.
go for it.
so it's the most active person who is passionate.
Yeah,
about
you are
this stuff.
lucky if it's tester, but
If it's an investment, then probably it will be paying off not on this project, but like in the future as well. So it's like invest in that, and then that person brings up more knowledge and then shares that.
I'm really surprised by this answer. Somehow I imagined that it's going to be a designer.
I thought it was tester as well. Like if I would want to avoid risks, I would say the tester, because he might catch any of those bugs, and at least you would know that they are there and you can fix them. But if it's a designer, he might write great designs, but front-ender will not implement them correctly,
but
and tester will
tester
not catch that.
will
And
But tester will find those bugs because
Yeah,
they will
so-
be in designs and not in
Yes.
Yeah.
application.
Exactly.
they will have to rework a lot up into designs, but at least you will know there is a bug in there. So, and there's another option for business to take is that there are some not certificates you can get for being accessible, but like your application being accessible, but there are some like verifications.
yeah, you can order audit. There are pretty good names in the domain that everyone knows that these guys are doing. Actually, it's good. So if you passed their audit, and they usually are very open about what exactly they're doing, because there are like dozen type of audits. Some company might charge money just to run browser extension on your page, and that's it, and give you the report. And some will do that, some analyze your code and then outsource to accessibility team and provide you a huge report. So if you got like the certificate, the badge from that the audit was done and you are good, and the company who did it is famous, then it's a big plus, of course.
There's no guarantees.
No.
You just
No. There are some changes in laws. For example, the last one, I remember that if the company ordered, if for example we are making the product for some company and they got sued for product not being accessible, they can blame us and we will have to pay that fine. So at some point, not from the beginning, but at some point, not so long time ago, they made this connection who exactly built the product, and the chain in the middle would have more power and not so dependent on the bad work that is done by someone. There might be some changes in audits in the badge and how legal it is, what does it say, and it's evolving.
in the list, I see the question certification types. CPACC versus VAS versus ADS versus CPABE. And I have no idea what it is. Could you explain me?
Basically, if you are already in accessibility field and you are doing something, and at some point there might be a situation that you want to have kind of proof that you know something, that you do something, and as with any other specialty, there are certifications. Currently, as far as I know, there are only 4 certifications in accessibility. So basically there is one agency which I think is located in the United States, but they have departments, international departments. It's called EAAP. And they provide 4 types of certifications today. And for us, probably 3 are more important, because the 4th one is about building accessible areas. It's more related to design, to the room planning, something like that, to the buildings. And 3 are more or less related to IT. Probably it depends on a person's background where to start, because they are quite different. One is the most technical one, probably is WAS, which is basically Web Accessibility Specialist, and it's a lot about front-end, HTML, JavaScript, and stuff like that. There is one which is probably more required in specific domains, because it's exactly about accessible documents. There is another big topic in accessibility domain. It's accessible documents, PDFs, and other types of files which also should be accessible, and there is a separate certification for that. There is a 3rd one which is called Core Competences in Accessibility, which has everything a bit. It's about etiquette, about WCAG, a bit about HTML, a bit about how to create a company strategy in accessibility. So it has like core, a bit of everything.
So is it the best one because it has a bit of everything?
It's the widest one, but it's not so deep, for example, into the technical stuff as WAC, which is exactly Web Accessibility Specialist. So it's wide, but not deep, let's say like that.
It's helpful for management also, how to build accessibility in your company,
especially
for example.
management.
Yes, exactly.
So if I would like to be accessibility tester, which one of these 4 would you recommend?
I would say maybe the web accessibility specialist.
Yeah.
Because it was, yes, because it's related with web, with development. If you are working on daily basis with developers, it will help you to understand each other.
But if you want to step out a bit from the tester's role, to start to speak more about people, to do something about advocacy, then it's core CPACC. It's the one.
So it's most about understanding the
whole domain from different perspectives. Yeah, from the people perspective, from the company perspective, which requirement, which laws are there. So it's very broad.
Do you have those certificates?
Yes.
Like you passed them and you have
all of them?
No,
CPAC.
Yeah, me too. I'm CPAC as well.
It's
Okay.
management.
And VAS
Next year.
Next year. Okay, nice. Was it hard?
Yes. Yeah,
Not that much.
it depends probably what have you done before, because you don't learn the whole certificate from the scratch. It will be extremely hard. But because a lot of things I already saw in practice, it was partly easy, but there were parts which were more hard when they going through different laws.
For me, it was most interesting topic when you need to understand what is case for different disabilities, and you need to learn about how your head, for example, or nerves are working, and what kind of accessibilities can cause.
There are some very medical questions.
Yes, and I enjoyed really, and I googled a lot of information about this medical stuff. Like, oh yes. As I understood, I want to be like a doctor, but like it's like wow, finally.
How many, like in Baltics at least, we like specialists we have with certificates?
2 in Lithuania, and the second person actually living in Germany. So probably
In the world, like what?
no, Baltics. I mean,
Baltics. So Germany doesn't count then.
I mean, then I'm the only one with spots in Baltics, in Lithuania, as far as I know.
Okay.
I'm
That's
not sure
nice.
about Latvia, but most probably like the same. But
One
I
person.
need to get this. I will be the second.
Like
But,
the ones with the comments, like on
like-
YouTube,
I mean,
the
the
first, second.
Second.
In their page, they have a list of everyone who has the certificate.
where?
Yeah. So I was speaking about Lithuania. Lithuania, there are 2 peoples, and the other one, Egle, is living in Germany. So we are 2, but she's working in this game design.
Hello.
So then Elīna in Latvia, and we're not sure about Estonia. The problem is that you have to Google through names, and someone
Yes.
with a unspecific name might have the passport of that country. So there is only one Lithuanian name, which is Eglė, and I have no Lithuanian name, but I found myself on that list. So
Nice.
They are saying information that, hey, you passed, congratulations. And I think there was information that in the world we have like 2,000 people with this.
yeah.
2000,
General statistics and
General statistics, 2,000 people worldwide.
and then much less if you get VAS.
Yes.
One.
Yes.
There were more people on Everest.
There are more Pope cardinals in the world than the UI specialists. There are around 5,000 cardinals in the world at all times.
Today we had a lot of information about accessibility testing. Maybe you can share your insights or maybe things that might happen in the future with accessibility testing.
As we can see for now, the main technology that is going fast forward and everywhere in accessibility as well, it's artificial intelligence and machine learning stuff. And it's not yet in the WCAG in any form. I'm not sure how it will come there, but probably it will at some point. First will appear are screen readers. Screen reader adopted some simple form of usage artificial intelligence, mostly for content recognition. Speaking about architecture, I'm not sure if it's part of screen reader or they are using OCR model, which is built into operating system, but still screen readers are able to recognize things. It sounds good, but it's not good as it seems, not always, because for example, if you can recognize the image, that's fine. If you are looking at some Instagram stuff or design, then you can get a pretty good description. But if you are navigating through the page of the bank, they might use some picture as an advertising. For example, I saw the picture of the green energy company, and in that advertising there was a house, a nice green moon, and a small girl dancing on it. So basically you see the picture, you think, oh, green energy, it's safe, my family will be happy. But there is zero sense in providing the direct description of that image to the user, because it's a visual stuff.
You're losing a context, right?
Yeah. Same the Q company, which builds a lot of different tools, and one of the most popular browser extension tools, Xcore, they are cooperating with a company called Labelbox, which is they provide some, how they call correctly, data engine for artificial intelligence, they're called themselves. First of all, DQ company has years of doing audits to different companies. So they took all that history and they put it into that machine learning algorithm, and they trying to use that to make their scanners better. It's not a revolution. It's not that like they put in 100 on different audits with most popular problems and their tool is the best one finds. But still, it's a direction they are trying to use that one.
So we might in the future have better, like X could be more precise, maybe less false positives.
That's the goal.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
Do you think that those changes or those like natural also changes will how it will trigger and result on testing, for example, or development?
I don't think that something will dramatically change. Maybe just better coverage, a bit of better coverage.
So when I think about it, and I think what will change, for example, from our perspective, and I don't see a lot of changes, for example, not so critical.
No, not yet. No.
Always I'm thinking how it will change our situation, in
but what already changed, the subtitles, automatic subtitles became much better in just a couple of years. This is the example where it worked, where it really worked, not just some random numbers.
That's the same feeling I'm getting from artificial intelligence. I always hear that it's around the corner, but so far it's really small examples where you can see, for example, all the chatbots, right? They're all hyping the chatbots. But do you personally ever use the chatbot?
I used, but in the end they send me to a real
person.
Yes, always, yes.
That's it. But when you're typing an email in Gmail and it ends your word, right? It's the same technology. Well, there it works, kind of, right? You sometimes can choose word or two. Even LinkedIn now suggests Lithuanian words if you're writing Lithuanian message. I was amazed. It pretty decently worked. Artificial intelligence in usability testing, I don't know. It would be really cool if it could catch the context of the situation, but I don't think that's like in 100 years, not very possible.
I wouldn't bet on that.
I'm not planning to live for such long.
But maybe it will help in some unexpected way.
Or for building more accessible products, or at least learning materials.
Thank you for our guests today for sharing this topic, and I think we're gonna have maybe more questions and maybe ask them later, maybe have another session, follow-up session. So please send the questions or comments, or you can then find them on LinkedIn. We're gonna share the links, and you can ask them those questions yourself. So don't wait maybe for next podcast. So we're gonna wrap this up. We're gonna see you in 2 more weeks. We're going to have another episode about digital twin and how to test the hardware in software simulation. So it's going to be quite interesting topic as well. Thank you for joining, and see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you.
Like, how lucky we are to have 2 certificate
The only ones in the Baltics.
in the Baltics.
Maybe that's your like doctorate,
like,
you know.
I didn't know that, and like,
I didn't know that.
okay.
Like that's why I don't understand much, because I'm sitting next to the 2 doctor levels, you know, specialists, like 2 doctor.
Like 2,000, 2 of the 2,000 people. So
Yeah,
like,
in astrophysicists, which are explaining to me like Newton's first law. Look, it's simple.
or just like start a new one.
I would
No,
like
no,
to
use
see.
Yes. this one and
for example,
continue.
we are outsourced. I don't know. You are like most probably you are internal.
It's hard to say.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
internally outsourced.
Or
It's outsourced as a product team.
yeah.
It's complicated.
Yeah. So
Okay, so then I misunderstood how you understood the topic,
I
because I
wonder-
I
understood
can
that you
ask
understand.
questions to you.
Like, I wonder what users, like viewers, will understand from that. But
Atsiprašau, daktar.
gal patrankytų. Sorry, I switched to Lithuanian. So I think you said atsiprašau, right? That's why I like picked up
I
and
just-
like started talking Lithuanian.
atsiprašau.
Yeah,
I
it's
couldn't
sorry.
tell anything else.
It's Paldies.
Paldies ir aprašau.
Paldies.
Paldies.
Ačiū.
Paldies.
Ačiū. Paldies.
Paldies. Yeah.
Ah,
So-
Ačiū.
Yeah. Lūdzu
yeah.
yra. Lūdzu yra.
Please.
Please. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
like native speaker.
there is gera vieta paėst in Riga.
Braucam majas. I know
Oh
this one.
yes. Paest, like paest.
Paest.
Yeah, but in
Paest,
Lithuanian
paest.
only animals are S, so
Yes,
it's not
yes,
for
yes,
people,
yes,
so it's
yes.
very funny.
This is the thing that colleagues, like Lithuanian colleagues, explained me today. Like vieta kur paest, place where to eat, for
So
example.
in Latin, it's perfectly nice.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
thank you.
It's just like for
I will start
animals.
to use this
Okay.
word. I like it.
It's international sentence.
Varam paėst.
But
Get-
paest, like this, most probably it's from Russian. Paest.
Paėst.
But if translate directly, it will be пожрать.
Lithuanian, da.
Okay.
No, we use 4 languages, like Latvian, Lithuanian, English, and Russian.
Subtitles will explode.
Let's start rolling and just ask this question and let them explain to us, because I'm this in the same boat as you.
It's a room, not a boat.
So